Hey everybody, it's Dr. Amy Myers. Happy Friday. I usually do these on Thursday, so I was about to say happy Thursday, but happy Friday. Hope you guys have some fun and exciting plans for the weekend. I'm excited to just be home with my little girl. Love to know what you're up to this weekend. Tell me hi below. Tell me where you're from, and maybe tell me what your plans are for the weekend. So for many of you who don't, well, not many of you, but for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the founder and medical director of Austin Ultra Health and of the New York Times bestselling author of The Autoimmune Solution and the Thyroid Connection. So today we're going to be talking all about sugar cravings and how to control your blood sugar. So about 500 of us just went through a Candida challenge, and I have a little confession. I did great on the Candida challenge, and we were just actually having a meeting talking about how to improve our Candida challenge. So we'll be having another one coming up in January. So anybody who thinks that they're suffering with Candida, you can either purchase the program now or you can wait to our next big challenge that will be happening in January. So that's a spoiler alert. But anyway, last night I was at the grocery store, or actually it was the night before, I was at Whole Foods, and there is this cashew ice cream that I don't typically indulge in, but they had a new flavor. So we had a little bite the night before and I was fine. And then last night it was Scandal and some cookies and cream, dairy-free, gluten-free ice cream. And somebody ate a lot of it. So it's good to know that we now have a new product, which I'll be talking to you guys about, which is called Blood Sugar Support. So I had taken a bottle home last night, because I always try every product before I put it on the store or anything like that. And I quickly popped 2 of these after eating a lot of cashew ice cream last night. So anyway, all of that's to say, even the best of us get sugar cravings. So I think after 30 or more days of no sugar and doing a Candida challenge, it got the best of me. So we'll be talking about sugar cravings and what you can do. Sometimes you do just have to give in and indulge, but other times you might not want to do that. And I have something that's going to help you. Let me jump over to Facebook and see who we have here.
Cravings. So I think after 30 or more days.
There we go. Let me jump over to Facebook. See who we have here. We have Dory, who's addicted to starch. We have Rita from the Dominican Republic. Hi there, Sonda. Hi there, Sonda. We have Gina from Plano, Texas. Rita Gonzalez. Hello. Nobody's told me what they're doing this weekend. We have Dana. Hi, Dana. Dana was just in our Candida challenge. Forgive me that I went and had a little bit of ice cream last night. We have Clarissa from Raleigh, North Carolina. So hello, everybody. So happy that you're here. All right, so let's jump into it. So let's just talk a little bit about why we even need to worry about sugar cravings, sugar, our blood sugar, and what impact that has on our health, and how we can deal with these things and not overindulge like I did last night. And now I'm actually having a bit of a headache because I never eat sugar. And then there I had a lot of sugar last night. So anyway, most of us Americans are consuming over 20 tablespoons of sugar a day. I probably got about 5 of those last night. Okay, so no joking aside, 20 tablespoons a day, folks. This isn't even talking about the pounds upon pounds that we're eating a year. 20 tablespoons a day. That's incredible. So why is sugar such a problem? Well, we just, like I said, got finished doing a Candida challenge. And one of the biggest problems in my mind about sugar, there's all kinds of problems with sugar and we'll get into this, but one of the biggest problems in my mind about sugar is what it's doing to your gut microbiome. I know my gut microbiome right now is screeching. It doesn't really know what to do with all that sugar that I gave it last night. So it's like, what'd you do to us? Why are you doing that to us? We know that our diet can impact our gut microbiome in as little as 2 days. So changing your diet from a vegetarian to a paleo diet to a high sugar, high carb diet, whichever direction you go, this can actually influence our gut microbiota. And of course, if we don't already have an infection like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, or Candida, it could lead to these. And then if we already have one of these, certainly this type of sugar could be feeding one of these infections. And honestly, looking at the amount of sugar people are eating every day, I would say these 2 infections are really some of the root causes that I see in all of my chronically ill patients. So if you know me, I always say The gut is the gateway to health. So having sugar is going to be feeding, if not creating these infections. If you already have them, it's going to be feeding these infections. And then what do we know about these infections? They can be the setup to potentially lead to something called leaky gut. So one of the first steps in healing your gut, well, let's back up. One of the first steps in healing almost all chronic illness, whether it's thyroid from Hashimoto's to Graves to autoimmune conditions, one of the first steps is to really support your gut and to help the healing, support the healing of your gut. So the first step in helping to prevent and potentially even reverse autoimmunity is to look at the gut. And then the first step in a 4R program of the gut is to remove. And what are we removing? We're removing foods, inflammatory foods. Sugar is a very inflammatory food. And then, or toxic food, toxic and inflammatory foods. And then we're removing infections, Candida, SIBO, parasites as well. But Candida and SIBO, how do we treat Candida and SIBO? First step is to starve them. So you can see how this is all interconnected, and this one little bit of sugar is leading, potentially setting up a gateway to problems down the line. Then of course we all know about diabetes, right? I mean, so we're a society, we're gaining weight, we're obese, we have lots of inflammation, leading to skyrocketing rates of type 2 diabetes, even autoimmune type 1 diabetes. So sugar is very toxic, that leads to inflammation. And what is making sugar toxic? Almost all sugar out there, you might not really know it, it's not coming from that good old sugar cane that we all know. When I was little, I grew up in New Orleans from the South, go down to the farmer's market on the weekend, and there'd be cut, pieces of sugar cane. And we literally, suck on sugar cane. Not the greatest, right? It's still going to affect your blood sugar, but it's real, coming from the real plant. That's where sugar came from. Nowadays, most of the sugar is coming from sugar beets or beet sugar, and all of that is GMO. So we know that GMOs, again, come back, back to the gut. GMOs, we're knowing with the Roundup and whatnot, that this can potentially lead to leaky gut. So you can see it's just manifesting upon manifesting. Regarding the thyroid, dramatic swings in blood sugar can cause us to convert more of our T3 to reverse T3 rather than that good free T3 that we need to step on the gas. And of course, any type of inflammation, if we're eating a toxic food, it's leading to inflammation. Any type of inflammation can be leading to inflammatory conditions. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that documentary going around. I have a friend who wrote something on Facebook the other day, which is what's making me think of it, is I think it's What the Health is what it's called, if I'm remembering correctly. And it's a bunch of cardiologists and other physicians on there talking about diabetes and how they say sugar is not causing diabetes or even heart disease, but rather meat. And my husband and I were watching this thinking, wow, is this a satire? Is this really real, that there's real physicians on here stating that sugar doesn't create diabetes or even heart disease? We now know with heart disease, it's an inflammatory process. I was just at a conference last weekend where people are claiming that it's even potentially an autoimmune process. Where do all these things begin? It's inflammation. And certainly we do know that sugar, whether it's high fructose corn syrup, to the sugar beet sugar, to real sugar, to even all the myriad of things that are really sugar, but they're labeled as something else, right? Like what I want to say, malt, I'm trying to think, maltodextrins or syrups, brown rice syrup. You see that in a lot of healthy foods, even in Whole Foods, right? A lot of cereals and packaged foods that are considered healthy foods. And then you see brown rice syrup. Well, that's just a fancy name for sugar, folks. So you really got to look at labels. I mean, really eat real whole foods that don't come in a package, so you're not even having to look at labels. But excess sugar can lead to heart disease by increasing inflammation, oxidative stress, and it's the inflammation with inside the endothelial wall that's creating these clots that then is creating blockages, which then creates potentially a heart attack. I'm going to just jump over and see who else we have on our okay, so Dana's saying she went apple picking. That's good. No sugar added and made applesauce. That's awesome. It's great. We're actually at home making all kinds of homemade foods for Elle right now. My daughter, she's a little over 7 months. At 6 months, we started doing real foods for her instead of just breast milk. And her first food was avocado, and it went so well. I was so excited. I was having visions of making all these fabulous homemade foods for her with all these different ingredients. And we went to the next food, which was sweet potato, and then squash, and went down the list of vegetables, and she was literally gagging at all of them. In fact, if you don't follow me over on Instagram and you're curious about my personal life, head on over to Instagram, Amy Myers MD. You'll see a photo of her, video of her gagging at sweet potatoes. So this does get back to sugar and fruits, but so bananas, I thought I was resisting doing bananas and resisting doing bananas because everybody told me once you do the fruits, they're never going to come back. They will, they'll only want the fruits. And so I thought, well, you know, she can't just eat an avocado. We've gone through every vegetable. We need to move on. Maybe if I get a little bit of banana in her, then maybe we can start adding in some other vegetables. So I was very hesitant and reluctant, and I finally gave in and started to do the banana, and I squashed it up, and I'm, you know, should I do it? Should I not do it? It's all this hemming and hawing. Of course, my husband Javier is just looking at me like a crazy woman, and I go to give her the banana, and she's gagging. It's so funny. It's so funny. She hates bananas. She even started hating, she hated apples. We finally got her to pears and peaches and apples and avocado. So now we're working our way back to the vegetables. But it was really funny that my child didn't even like bananas. Everybody says, what child doesn't like bananas? So yeah, but I mean, fruits, they, you know, really potentially need to limit your fruits for some people as well, because these can, you know, they contain fructose in them, but still for some people, depending on how you respond with your insulin and blood sugar, you might be responding almost to a fruit in the way that you do a Snickers candy bar. I'm by no means suggesting go eat a Snickers candy bar or suggesting that fruit is bad, but you do need to think about this. Even complex carbs, which we talk about a lot in the Candida and the SIBO program, because even you know, I was a vegetarian for 27 years. Even people eating complex carbs like rice and beans and even sweet potatoes can potentially have blood sugars. You know, Rob Wolf wrote a great book. I can't actually think of the name of it right now, Wired to Eat. Now I've remembered it. He sent me a copy of it, and it really talks about how we can all have different responses, insulin responses to, you know, a candy bar, to a fruit, to a complex carb like a sweet potato, and really understanding how you respond to these foods is super important. And really these swings in blood sugar can be problems for people. You know, back in the day when I was a vegetarian, I used to have to carry around a bar or something with me to eat every day by 10 a.m. I would be starving, and I would be grumpy, you know, hangry is I think the word that people use when they're getting the low blood sugar and they're starting to get, you know, anxious and irritable. And I would have to go every few hours of eating. Now that I've switched over to the Myers way, now that I've switched over to more of a paleo type lifestyle, and I'm eating, you know, organic meats and high protein, certainly have fiber and vegetables and healthy fats in there, and some fruits. I have fruit, if at all. I have it once a day in a shake, and it's typically only berries. And I have it with the paleo protein, always combining these. But I used to have massive blood sugar swings when I was eating this much higher carb diet from a vegetarian diet, because even the proteins that you're getting from grains and legumes contain carbs. And once I went to true proteins without all of these carbs, I stopped having those swings. I mean, I can go hours. I still eat 3 meals a day, but I can go hours upon hours, or even sometimes get up and walk out the door and not have breakfast. I'm not advocating that, although there are some studies showing about intermittent fasting. I'm digressing and getting off track here, but the point of all of this is stabilized blood sugar is one of the things that you really want to be going for. When we don't have stabilized blood sugar, all of these hormones interact. So we go from, you know, our hormones of insulin as a hormone, to our thyroid hormone, to our adrenal hormones, to our sex hormones, whether those are male or female hormones. And all of these are like an interconnected web where they're all talking. So when one is off balance, the rest are going to get off balance. So if you're already somebody who's dealing with thyroid dysfunction, adrenal dysfunction, all the more reason, hormonal dysfunction with your female or sex hormones or male hormones, all the more reason that you really have to make sure that you have tight blood sugar control so that you're not having these swings, because as you swing, as we already mentioned, as you're swinging, excess, plummeting or excess blood sugar is going to lead to excess insulin. It's going to lead to excess estrogens, which is going to lead to binding more of your thyroid hormone. So this is very, very important. Of course, if we're eating more sugar, more carbs, or having these insulin swings, it's going to lead to weight gain. And over time, we do even know that even just eating a little bit of sugar can suppress the immune system. So if you're eating a little bit of sugar, it's just like extreme exercise can suppress the immune system. We can handle these little suppressions in the immune system, like suppress it and then it bounces back. But if we're chronically eating a lot of sugar, it's just like stress, right? If you're chronically stressed, it's going to suppress ultimately the immune system. So eating sugar every day could potentially suppress your immune system. So what are some causes of getting our blood sugar out of balance? Stress in and of itself can drive up inflammation and get our blood sugar out of balance. So all the things that I talk about, right? Let's just go through them. So we talk about diet. So of course, diet, high in sugar, high in carbs. We've even talked about the good things, that the grains, the legumes, even the starchy vegetables and fruits that we think of as healthy can drive up our blood sugar, particularly depending on how you are and how insulin sensitive you are. So then, of course, infections like Candida can also not only cause sugar imbalances, but they can cause us to crave sugar. I tell people a lot of times they're beating themselves up. I couldn't help myself. A lot of times the sugar craving is actually coming from the Candida. That Candida needs to be fed. It's going to do whatever it needs to do to survive. So if you're starving it by not feeding it with sugars and complex carbs, it's going to, rear its head and demand to be fed. So really, going through a Candida program using what I'll talk about here shortly, our blood sugar control, can help with these sugar cravings. And then, of course, diabetes. And I would say a lot of the reason for sugar cravings with diabetes is actually that most people with diabetes have an underlying Candida, if not also SIBO. But I don't see the SIBO, demanding to be fed. I typically see the Candida demanding to be fed. So, it's kind of this cycle that's going to build upon one another. So we're going to get in 1 second just about how to beat some of these sugar cravings here in just a second. And then if you have some questions, we'll be happy to answer your questions. And if you have anybody who's, dealing with sugar cravings, anybody who's dealing with Candida that you think might enjoy this, please pass that on. Hi, Robert from Utah. Hi, Tiffany. When you say eating a lot of fruits, if eating a lot of sugars, is that including fruits as well? So I already kind of covered that, and I'm sure I'll cover that a bit in a little bit more. But for right now, yeah, and all fruits are not created equal, just like every vegetable is not created equal, right? So the carb content of a zucchini is much less than the carb content of a sweet potato. And so that's going to affect your blood sugar very differently. The carb content and sugar content of a berry versus a banana is very different. And the way that that's going to impact your blood sugar levels and your insulin levels is very different. So I'm a believer that if you are going to eat starchy vegetables, that you always eat it with a protein. And if you're going to eat fruits, that you're always eating it with a protein. If you're somebody who is, not on a paleo or not on an autoimmune protocol, and you eat nuts, having some nut butters with, a slice of apple or something. For me, typically, as I've mentioned, the only fruits that I eat are typically berries, and it's in a shake, and I eat it with the paleo protein that I have on our website in a shake, which is, I think, 21 grams of protein. So, all right, so who else do we have? Sue's glad to hear she's not the only docs with the mother with the difficult children. Yes, I wouldn't call Elle difficult, but certainly a picky eater. And I guess it's just karma because I was a very, very picky eater when I was little as well. Jerry, will there be a replay on the Facebook page? Absolutely. We always keep these up. In fact, a lot of times they get emailed out as well. So, hi, Marge. How are you? All right, so let's dive in. I think I kind of already started to cover it for you guys, but ways to beat sugar cravings. So a couple things to beat sugar cravings is really goes back to eating a really well-balanced diet that is full of protein and healthy fats. So healthy fats can come from, we love avocados in our family. Literally, we go through, well, now with Elle, at least one avocado, if not two, a day in our household. So other healthy fats like coconut oil are really helpful. If you're somebody who can eat nuts and seeds, those can be other sources of healthy fats for you as well. And then proteins, organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised. If you are a vegetarian or a vegan, but you're more a vegetarian or a vegan because of texture, rather than any other reason, which is one of the biggest reasons that I started as a vegetarian, was just the texture. And then I became one for ethical reasons. And then I realized I needed to get well and survive and thrive. And so I gave up that battle and now realize that eating the meat the way that I eat it is, ethically raised. So if you are doing that, but you're willing to eat, say, one of the smoothies, the paleo proteins with the hydrolyzed beef or collagen, those can be good sources for you to get protein in if it's more of a texture thing and you don't want to, actually bite into protein. So really eating a diet that's very filled with protein, healthy fats, and then, some complex carbs, particularly those people dealing with adrenal issues. Sometimes they can't go super high protein and high fat and very low carb. So if you're going to eat carbs, making sure they're very complex carbs in the form of like sweet potatoes, squashes, or if you're eating grains, of course, things like quinoa or a brown rice or something like that. Or legumes if you eat those and tolerate those, but just limit those, particularly if you're dealing with something like candida. A lot of sugar cravings are coming from candida. You want to deal with adrenal issues as well. So, people who have blood sugar swings could be dealing with adrenal issues as well. We have a product on my website, AdrenoMend, if you're interested in that, along with, I have programs in both of my books, The Thyroid Connection and The Autoimmune Solution, that walk you through an adrenal protocol as well. And then, part of an adrenal protocol is going to be eating the right type of diet, which I've already mentioned. Really good sleep. The amber glasses can help with that, setting your sleep, melatonin, and then stress relieving activities. We can't get rid of all the stress to stress relieving activities. And then, of course, if you're dealing with candida, you might want to look for an underlying cause, and could that possibly be candida for you? So we just finished with our Candida Challenge, which was a group of us all doing it together. But I do have a Candida program on my website, which you can go to at amyMD.io/Candida Control. Candida Control. You can go there and you can get we have a Candida program that's available all the time on my website. It's a fantastic program. We just got incredible reviews from the 500 people that just went through the program. Of, I think nearly 90% of people had in very significant improvement, if not complete resolution in their symptoms, which was just fabulous. So highly recommend that, really treating the underlying cause. So, and then you want to look for something that's going to either help support your blood sugar if you're somebody already, who's maybe has metabolic syndrome, that you're potentially on the fence of getting diabetes, to somebody who has type 2 diabetes, to anybody who is just having blood sugar issues, or somebody who's having sugar cravings. So we have a new product. It launched this week, and it's called Blood Sugar Support, and you can find it on my website. And I'm going to go through kind of what it has in it and why it's helpful to your blood sugar. We've been sending out emails. It's 15% off tonight, through tonight at midnight Central Standard Time. So head on over if you're interested in that. And you can also go to a special link, amymd.io/blood sugar if you're interested. So just kind of walking through this, the two big winners in this product are the chromium. We used to just have chromium on our website, and then I decided to formulate something that just had even more support in it. And there are a number of studies that have been coming out recently showing that when you combine biotin with chromium picolinate, that it can increase the absorption and have 5 to 10 times better results in terms of helping stabilize your blood sugar and also sugar cravings. So those are really the two biggest winners in this product. So chromium picolinate in and of itself, there have been lots of studies for many years showing that it can help stabilize blood sugar, particularly in people with type 2 diabetes. And biotin, not by itself, but biotin when combined with chromium picolinate has, like I said, a 5 to 10 times better outcome in supporting blood sugar. So those are the two biggest winners in this product. And just, for you to know, if somebody's just looking at other products or ways to stabilize their blood sugar, chromium picolinate is found in organ meat and grains. I'm not a big advocate of grains. If you can eat liver and you like organ meats, go for it. I've just never been able to do it. So, for me, this is a great product for people who either can't or don't want to eat those two foods. So it's an essential mineral that's needed to process not only carbs, but also fats and proteins. And there have been a number of studies showing, like I mentioned, it being very helpful for type 2 diabetics to manage their blood sugar. So the studies showed that people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular, tend to have lower levels of chromium in their blood compared to people who don't have type 2 diabetes. So that's where the studies started coming to show, well, maybe if we replete or replace with chromium picolinate, will that then help them stabilize their blood sugars? And there are studies showing that, in fact, when they did give them chromium picolinate to type 2 diabetics, that their blood sugar remained more stable after eating carbs. I'm not suggesting if you have type 2 diabetes that you really shouldn't change your dietary habits and your lifestyle. And in fact, following the program in the autoimmune solution or the thyroid connection would be extremely helpful for anybody out there who's suffering with type 2 diabetes. Those programs, even though they say thyroid or they say autoimmune, just forget that when you're reading them and say diabetes, type 2 diabetes, every time you read autoimmune, and the book will be helpful and the program will be helpful for you. So I'm not advocating that you get this supplement and then go hog wild and eat this stuff. But as you are changing your diet and your lifestyle, it could be very helpful for you to add in blood sugar support if you are somebody with type 2 diabetes and also sugar cravings. So people taking chromium picolinate with diabetes had less fatigue, less depression. And, when we're getting it from our diet, it's not very well absorbed, which is another reason to take it in a dietary supplement form. And then again, biotin helps with the absorption, and it also allowed it to be absorbed significantly better. So there are a couple of I have a few herbs in here. Fenugreek, many of you all might be used to hearing fenugreek. I believe fenugreek can also help stimulate for breast milk. Where I've been hearing, I'm not doing breastfeeding, but I have a group of women who I'm in a little group with who all had babies around the same time as Elle. And so they were all talking about that. But that can help stimulate insulin. And then there's some vandylyl sulfate that can help reduce the amount of, we call it hepatogluconeogenesis, but the amount of basically glucose that's getting excreted from our liver. So, we store a lot of that, which is why a lot of people who are eating high fructose corn syrup and lots of sugar can have what's called fatty liver, because they're almost storing too much of that. And that leads to obesity and fatty liver. But when you go fasting, then it's our liver that releases that glucose through gluconeogenesis that then gives us the get up and go, and how people can go for days without literally starving to death because it's all stored in their liver. So it also contains thiamine and niacin. So thiamine has been, there have been studies showing that people with diabetes also have decreased levels of thiamine. So this is helping replete that. And then niacin helps with fat metabolism. So this product is going to be helpful for anybody dealing with sugar cravings, anybody dealing with diabetes, anybody who's dealing with metabolic syndrome, anybody dealing with blood sugar swings. So this is all, like I said, the two main winners in here are going to be our biotin and the chromium picolinate. Together, synergistically work together, boosting each other to help stabilize the blood sugar and help in terms of keeping the blood sugar stable throughout the day, and particularly if you're somebody who's eating carbs. So again, if you're interested, it's 15% off through tonight, midnight Central Standard Time, and you can go to amymd.io/blood sugar. There are a couple questions that I'm going to be answering here in just a second. And let me just pop back over and see if there's anybody else that we need to say hello to. Let's see, I think I said hi to everybody there. It takes a while for these comments to come through in terms of, you know, when I can see them. So we had, okay, so Dana wants to know, this is an interesting question, if she adds protein such as collagen, or I'm assuming also say the paleo protein powder, and fat such as coconut oil or coconut milk to my applesauce, will that make it less problematic sugar-wise? Absolutely. So, I mean, certainly, and you are the one who mentioned that you went to an orchard this weekend and you picked apples yourself and you made real applesauce without any sugar in it. So you're essentially eating, you know, cooked apples, which is great. Just got to be careful, because anytime you dry a fruit or you cook a fruit, it's going to enhance the sweetness. It's going to concentrate the sweetness, and then, you know, you're not biting it, you're not chewing it. So you may end up eating more than one apple, right? I mean, like if you put apple, and I know this because we're doing this for Elle right now, you know, a full apple makes about 2 ounces of apple sauce. I know this because I've been doing this week. And so, or like if you slice and make apple chips, you're not going to just eat 5 little apple slices, right? So first of all, you do need to be careful about the amount when you do something like that, the amount that you're going to be eating. It's why, you know, if you eat almonds versus nut butter, I see a lot of people with problems with almonds now, because, you know, if they ate a handful of almonds, they'd get full, but when they eat the almond butter, they're eating, you know, lots more. If they're eating a product made out of almond flour, a cupcake out of almond flour, that took a lot more almonds than if you ate real almonds. So I'm really an advocate of, you know, eating things in their real form. But certainly if you're going to be eating applesauce, it's that same theory of like, if you eat a fruit, add the nut butter or add it to a smoothie. So that's kind of like you're making a smoothie, but not. You're adding collagen into it and coconut and fat into it. So for sure, that's going to help the situation out. And then just be careful about the amounts that you're eating. So Robert wanted to know, do I have any thoughts on berberine? Berberine is just an awesome herb all around. We have a product, Microbe Clear, that has berberine in it. Berberine, I mean, is one of those wonder herbs that could be helpful to with parasites, with SIBO, with candida, with, you know, just helping stabilize your gut microbiome. I was again at a lecture over this past weekend where I give a thyroid talk, and somebody was giving a talk about cardiovascular disease and talking about berberine in terms of inflammation and even cardiovascular disease. So berberine is one of those, you know, lovely herbs that can be helpful in a lot of different ways. Just don't go too crazy, because it is one that can, you know, kill things. So it can kill candida and it can kill SIBO, but it can have an effect on your good bacteria too. So you just need to be careful. Sufyan, I guess is how you pronounce that, Sufyan, Sufyan. Can this be beneficial for gestational diabetes? So I do think this could be very helpful for you, but I'm very cautious when it comes to taking things when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. So I would just double check, and I will double check on this because I forget sometimes about pregnancy and gestational diabetes. So I will review and we'll try to get back to you about each of these herbs. I imagine it's totally fine, but I would always consult my physician before I add in any herbs or supplements if you're pregnant, short of, a multivitamin, fish oils, and probiotics and vitamin D. Kind of anything above and beyond those, I would always check with your physician about that. Let's see. Okay, so Jolie's asking about, curious about supplements taken with a multivitamin. Do I take into account the amounts when I'm formulating my own supplements? Yes. So for the multi that I formulated, it has very high amounts, which I think most people need, of premethylated B vitamins, vitamin A. It has 1,000 units of vitamin D. So that was meant to be almost a one-stop shop. I mean, short of people who have 2 mutations at MTHFR, that's pretty much a one-stop shop multivitamin. And then, of course, there are products, depending on what other issues somebody may have. But that's why for the Thyroid Connection, for most people, it's the multi, fish oils, probiotics, and some vitamin D. And for most people, although I don't see most people, I see very complex issues, most people, that's enough, particularly when you're taking a really high quality multivitamin. Somebody was asking me why I didn't have more calcium and magnesium in my multivitamin. And I wanted to put more in there to really make it truly one-stop shopping. But then it was going to be 8 to 10 pills. So I knew that people were not going to take 8 to 10 pills. And I really needed to keep it at 6 pills. For the multi that I had before that was 6 pills. And I felt like people, based on feedback and my patients and all that stuff, 6 was about the most people were going to take. So I did my best to keep it at 6. So because of that, I had to leave out a few things that I wanted to make more. But it's why I don't like a lot of products out there on the market that have so many different ingredients, because, some formulas will have for, say, adrenal support, it will have a lot of B vitamins, or it will have, a lot of zinc or something in it. And then when you do that, plus the multi, or my multi at least, yeah, you could be getting into potentially too much of something. So I really stay away from, in general, products that I know are going to overlap with my multi. That was kind of a long answer to that question, and I don't know that necessarily had to go with the blood sugar here, but I'm happy to answer that question, that I do take those things into account, and don't have a lot of products you won't see, short of my B vitamins and my methylation support, that say have a lot of B vitamins in them. And it's because my multi has so much B in it that I feel like that's what you need, unless, again, you have 2 mutations at MTHFR or something like that. Jerry, is it okay to take the blood sugar support even if you don't have high blood sugar levels? I would say yes. I don't have high blood sugar levels. My hemoglobin A1C, which for you guys, I didn't really bring this up, but if you want a really nice marker of what your blood sugar has been doing, there's 2 things that you can do. I mean, one, you can go out and buy, basically over the counter now, a blood glucose monitor. So if you don't mind sticking your finger, even if you're not diabetic, you can be monitoring your blood sugar, which is actually what Rob Wolf advocates in his book, as you're doing these experiments to see how you tolerate various sugars and carbs and fruits and things like that. So you can do that, and that's real time. Like, how did that food affect you? And that's awesome. I don't think you need a prescription. I'm fairly sure you can just go to Target, Walmart, go to the pharmacy and order that stuff. If not, I would imagine most physicians would be more than happy to write you for one of those. I don't think they're super expensive. I don't own one, so I don't know. But the other is to, of course, get a fasting blood sugar through the lab. And, I think it's like 70 to 100 is normal. I like it to be around 80 when people are getting up in the 90s. That's a little high for me. And then a hemoglobin A1C. So a hemoglobin A1C is really what is telling you what your blood sugar did over the last 3 months. I got another one for you too, triglycerides. So it's what your blood sugar has been doing over the last 3 months. So, Chris Kresser talks about some people's red blood cells turn over longer than every 3 months. And so they could have elevated blood sugars. I'm not finding that clinically. I see when people have elevated blood sugars, they're typically eating too many carbs, or I see that they have candida. And once we treat the candida, then those blood sugars come down. So, and you know, sort of the lower that number is on a hemoglobin A1C, there's some studies showing it as a better indicator of potentially preventing things like cardiovascular disease, certainly obesity, diabetes, as well as brain dysfunction like dementia and Alzheimer's. So Dr. David Perlmutter writes about that in Grain Brain. So really looking at your hemoglobin A1C. So normal, I think, is up to 5.8. I really love it when I see people down in, 5, 5.1, 5.2, or even lower. So that really tells me. Triglycerides is another good indicator. So on your cholesterol panel, you'll look at your total cholesterol, HDL, the quote unquote good cholesterol, LDL, the quote unquote bad cholesterol. We now know cholesterol is far, that those numbers are rather worthless, and it's really about your particle size that matters. But it will also tell you about your triglycerides. And when I see people whose triglycerides, again, I think less than 150 is normal, but when I see people in the hundreds, I know carbs. When my patients, most of my patients, they're down in the 70s and 80s. So that's where you want to see those, because that is a real indicator of carb intake. And then another level that you can get is your insulin level in the morning. So if your insulin levels are high, most doctors don't check that. I check this on all my patients. So insulin levels, when they're high, means you're secreting more insulin and you're probably taxing your pancreas and potentially could lead to burnout. So just some labs that you could ask your doctor for and look at are, you could either check your own blood sugars through a blood stick. You can check your fasting blood sugar. You can check your fasting insulin. So fasting blood sugar, almost sort of the lower the better, unless you, of course, it's very low and you feel hypoglycemic. Insulin, almost again, the lower the better, unless, of course, you feel hypoglycemic. Triglyceride levels on your cholesterol panel, and then a hemoglobin A1C. And of course, all of those, the lower the better the number. And so those are very good indicators of how very good indicators of how well you're controlling your blood sugar. Okay, so many, if you're somebody who's prone to, back to Jerry's question, eating carbs and things like that are going to swing your blood sugar, then yeah, this would be really good to stabilize it. You don't have to have diabetes to take this. You can, again, take it for sugar cravings and just to stabilize your blood sugar. Or if you're somebody who feels like you're noticing swings in your blood sugar. Of course, the best way to always do that is to go back to diet and eating higher protein, higher fat, and lower carb. For most people, will stabilize their blood sugar. Valerie's noticing, asking about, is the biotin in this product the same biotin that helps with hair, skin, and nails? Yes, it is. So 2 for 1 special with that. Okay, so don't forget, if you're interested in ordering the supplement, it's available to you for 15% off between now and midnight Central Standard Time. You can go to amymd.io /blood sugar. If you're interested in our Candida control program, because maybe something I've said here has made you think that maybe you have Candida, that's available all the time on the website. You can go to my store under programs, it's available, or you can go to amymd.io /Candida control. So any other questions before I part ways? I don't know that everybody told me what they were doing this weekend. So we have music class with Elle on Saturdays, so we're excited about that. And we're going to get to, I'm actually going on a walk with my former nutritionist, Brianne, in the morning, and her son. And so, and then going to music class, and then just hanging at home. Elle's starting to eat food and crawl. She's a, little fast little thing, crawling and practically even walking. So anyway, y'all have a fabulous weekend, and thanks for showing up today. Good to see you all, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye.